You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 115 of East Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today I'm joined by, and only joined by, Dakota Davis.
Today's episode features the two of us. This is an old school style episode. If you were around for the early days of Boss Hog of Liberty, then you might remember the days where it was just Jeremiah and myself sitting around his kitchen table and talking into microphones. And that is pretty much what today's show is, except we're no longer around the kitchen table. We are still at the beautiful studio in downtown Newcastle. We're going to talk about a whole lot of things today, but we're not really sure what we're going to talk about. This is a very free-form episode. You have some scribbles written down on a sheet of paper about Greg Pence and some wind energy type deals and Fair Oaks Dairy Farms, all kinds of different things that have been in the news, some pertaining to just East Central Indiana, and some of them pertaining to our national audience.
Are you going to try to steal from me? These were my notes I made.
Well,
you didn't make any notes this week.
I might. So There's a couple of things that I had in my head that I wanted to talk about, but you already have these notes written down, so we'll see what happens.
There we go. Well, this show is about our lives in rural Indiana. It's about us. It's a me show. It's an us show. And you guys in the audience are us too. We are here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we'll just make you laugh. Hopefully you always learn something new. We do want to thank everybody in the Patreon group. You just got a few minutes of just Dakota and I vamping, talking about our weekends and some of the stuff we got into. Need to thank the Patreon donors.
That's right. We need to say thank you to all of the people that pay the bills around this place and make sure that we still have a podcast every single week. And if you donate $50 or more a month, then you get a special shout out on each episode. And those folks are Christopher Bilbrey, Brantley Spicer, Christy Avery, Jonathan Phillips, and of course our friend down in Hawaii, Craig DaCosta. If you don't want to join the Patreon, then we have a lot of other options that you can support the show, such as the Amazon wish list, our T-Chip stores at BHOL1, BHOL2, and BHOL3. And then we also have a GoFundMe page set up so that we can get some new camera equipment. And we have multiple different angles, which might not be that great for this show. But whenever we get to candidate episodes and we have candidates that are having discussions with each other in the fall time and next year in the 2020 election, maybe you'll be able to see like Pete Buttigieg over here in this chair, and then like Andrew Yang in this chair, hashing it out with each other and talking about their issues. Who knows? Who knows where we'll be in 2020, Jeremiah? But if you want to support the show and help us get there, then you can go to the GoFundMe page and donate to our camera equipment setup. So,
is there a website you can go to order a producer? Because you seem to be the guy that had to do it all tonight.
Been running around. Our regular producer, Chris Guffey, he's also running for city council in Ward 3 in Newcastle, Indiana. He's got his candidate hat on tonight, so he wasn't able to make it to the show.
I always feared this day would happen.
Yep. Yeah. Listen, we promised him that we might not be able to pay him to do the producer's job. But if he ever was looking for a job, then he could put down audio and visual engineer and put us both down as references. I don't know if that can happen anymore.
It's a little questionable now. I don't know. You can always email us as well. So we do have email. Dakota at bosshogofliberty.com, Jeremiah at bosshogofliberty.com. Got an email this week from Vincent Peichel. And if you remember about 3 weeks ago or so, I said we had Sean Rao on.
Right.
And I made a joke about the stand-up philosopher, and I said, I don't care who you are, what you're doing right now. I want you to stop your car. I want you to email me and tell me you understood that joke. Vincent did it.
Vincent did.
He said, incurring minor embarrassment at work. I legitimately chuckled out loud at your stand-up philosopher reference. I love Mel Brooks films, especially History of the World Part 1. The unemployment line might be one of the best gags. I wish they made a part 2, but I'm guessing that was a part of the joke too. Anyway, I'm 33 and from Minnesota. If you want to throw some demographics on me, thanks for your time. All the best, Vincent. So there we go. Vincent in, I did a little research, in Shakopee, Minnesota, which is the Minneapolis area.
So creepy. Glad that we can be in your ear holes, Vincent.
That's right. But I told you and Sean and others, I'm absolutely blown away at the reach of this program and where people listen to us from.
Yep.
Hawaii to Minnesota to Henry County, Indiana. It just never stops.
That is never more true than whenever you get an email from someone from Minnesota.
I want to go fishing.
Amazing. I love this podcast for so many reasons, but the emails are definitely gratifying for sure.
And then Cade, apparently we're in a drought condition now, and they're finally able to get out in the fields. Thank God for the farmers being able to get out there. I think about a little over a third of the Indiana corn crop is finally in, but it's supposed to be about all in by now. We're in we're finishing up the first week of June, and they're finally getting to plant.
Right. They're running out of time on the old farmers insurance, right?
So
we are farmers.
This week, 2 years ago, they were doing the replant.
Yeah.
This week, a year ago, you and I were at my bachelor party in Nashville, Tennessee. The Facebook timeline was very full. New York as well. My Aunt Martha Hebert is watching as well in Messina, New York. So coast to coast, you got the ocean to ocean consistently. We're all over the place. But a year ago, we were in Nashville, and Cade was like very, very hesitant to RSVP yes to that because he was like, if we have to replant, it'll be then. That's when listen, man. You set the camera up and you have it all jacked up. You set it off to the side. I'm barely in the shot, and now he's gotten up and walked away. So yeah, this time a year ago, we were worried about Cade being able to make it because he was concerned about having to do replant, and here they are with a third of the corn crop in the field. So. No Cade tonight. Danny's off coaching T-ball. Chase is throwing chickens in the fryer or whatever the hell he does now. He works for Lee's Chicken, right? Or KFC? I don't know.
Something like that.
He's feeding America. And then Mason quit this week. I don't know what happened there. So it's us,
our intern.
So you're doing double duty. This is like the old days. I didn't mind running being our own producer back in the day, but Guffey's been so good for so long. We moved all of the controls to the other side of the room, and I can't do anything if I wanted to.
There are two control stations now. The audio side of the room is 5 feet to the camera's left, and then the visual equipment is about 10 feet right across from us. So it's we honestly at this point, this show probably to be at full peak needs like 4 people in chairs on the air and an audio and a video producer. That's right.
Instead, it's a 2-man show.
Yep, we could.
The second week we're off the Mevo where we could be a 1-man band. We've gone to the most complicated setup ever, and it's just the two of us. It's like
it's true.
It's I can barely pat my head and rub my belly at the same time. So. Libby Potter's in the chat and wants to know where Sarah and Audrey are. I assume your wife is at work paying the bills.
I just don't think they love us enough.
And Sarah loved us enough to make us dinner, but then she chose to feed the dogs instead of hanging out with us. Riley ate his last meal tonight, and if we don't get, it's not that severe. I'm just saying we ran out of dog food. If we didn't go to the Rural King, Kroger, or Walmart, he just wouldn't look at us the same tomorrow.
You guys should sign up on Chewy.com and have your...
Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's what we do.
The UPS guy hates me enough already. That's the last thing I need is to deliver 50-pound bags of dog food.
Every 2 weeks.
Is there a read for Chewy.com? Could they be a sponsor? Maybe convince me, man. Maybe we will sign up for Chewy.
They're the same price as a grocery store.
Is it tax-free or tax-deferred where you just pay the use tax later? Wink, wink, Eric Holcomb.
We love them because you don't have to mess with it at the grocery. It's the same price, and they're really nice people. For Daisy's birthday, they sent her a handwritten card in the mail and said, "Happy birthday, Daisy." Your friend, your friends at Chewy.
Have you told the people at Chewy about what happened
to Daisy? What happened to Daisy?
To Dodger? Was Dodger?
No, Dodger wasn't on Chewy.
Oh,
he had He had BarkBox, and we did
Yeah.
get a card that said, "Sorry for your loss." From,
Really? You
from
just go on the
BarkBox.
website and you mark this. I'm sorry it happened.
Yeah, we have. Well, I mean, we unsubscribed. It was like, but then we subscribed again.
And you check the box saying, he's gone.
Yeah,
Well,
that was sad.
That is sad. All right, so a couple of things. There's a state senator, a guy named Jim Merritt, Senator Jim Merritt, Republican from Indianapolis, and I think he's the chairman of the Marion County, which is the big center of Indianapolis, the center of Indiana, the biggest county, the state capital. He's the Republican chairman. Been in the Senate a long time. Our friend Rob Kendall co-hosts Capitol Happenings with him, and Jim is running for mayor of Indianapolis.
Yes,
As
a
Republican, obviously the Republican chairman would probably, if he's running for mayor, would probably do it as a Republican.
Well, it's important to note that the current mayor of Indianapolis is
Pothole Joe, Democrat Pothole Joe.
Joe Hogsett.
Friend of the family, but we're big fans of Pothole Joe, Rushville ties, and very close to the Potter Morrell family. So all the best for Pothole Joe. Joe. Anyway, so Jim's running in that race. And he, all of a sudden, it has become in vogue to march in the Pride Parade.
Yes.
Back in the day when I went in the Pride Parade in 2016 with Rex Bell running for governor, a Republican wouldn't dare show their face. But now all of a sudden, it's in vogue.
Now
everybody loves the rainbow colors, and Republicans want to march in it. Apparently, there was this big scandal fallout where he said he's going to come, and he said he's not welcome.
Yep.
Which, I'm going to be honest, that's kind of bad form.
The organizers of the Pride Parade said, "Sorry, Jim Merritt, you're no longer welcome to march in the Pride Parade anymore because of your history voting against LGBTQIA plus people in the Indiana State House, such as like the religious freedom."
He voted for RFRA, which created the First Church of Cannabis.
Right.
If you want to know about that, go listen to episode 1 of Boss Hog of Liberty. If you want to go real old school, your wife is a devout follower.
Yeah, she went to a service at the First Church of Cannabis. But anyway, they said, "Nope, sorry, Jim, you're not allowed," which seems weird.
Does not feel very inclusive, does it?
He is the executive branch of the city in which the Pride Parade takes place.
Well, he would be, should he win.
On public streets, right? Well, I guess he's the executive of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Should have been more clear.
But he's a state senator for the city as well.
He is apparently some people that have this arbitrary power of organizing a parade to get to tell who is and who is not allowed on public property.
So
like, what?
So Merritt has had
I'd
all
say
this
he
pressure.
crashes it.
He's had all this pressure, and now allegedly he's not going to do it. But he was invited. Another guy that's been on the show, Brad Klopfenstein, hung out with us back in the congressional series, and he manages the Antelope Club. And you check the Indy Star today, and he said, "Well, Jim's a member of the Antelope Club in Indianapolis. He's welcome to march with us. He put on our T-shirt, and he can be an Antelope Club member and walk, no problem at all." Did I do it again?
Yep. Always unplugging my headphones. I don't know what you were doing. But yeah, he's...
I'm changing my pants live on the air. Usually producer Chris does it for me. But...
all of our audio listeners just went, "Wow, glad I didn't watch the video."
It's a lie. It's not true. It's not true. I was just adjusting my shoe. I've got something in my shoe, and I don't know what it is. You know, the thing I'm worried about the most right now on the show?
What?
Honestly. Sometimes this is a secret. It's secret time, everybody. It's like Bert Kreischer's here. What Dakota or I will sneak away from time to time because
occasionally
Dakota's got the bladder of an acorn, and sometimes I've been on the road all day and I just keep drinking water, trying to stay hydrated.
Yep.
So we'll sneak away and have to go to the bathroom. If I go right now, can you hold the show together for the 40 seconds to 3 minutes that it would take? What would happen? And how
I would be fine. I could hold the show together and just talk about Greg Pence for a minute. But we just started like 10 minutes ago.
I know, I'm just asking. I'm literally just wondering at some point if this happens. I'm not worried about it now. I'm creating suspense. Have you been in this industry long? You've got to have a tease.
Yeah, I could do it. I'm not worried about it.
You think so?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, what Jim Merritt, should he should he get banned from the Pride Parade for past votes?
I don't.
Should these people be like, yes, we would love to have you. Let's set the precedent that everybody comes and does this thing.
I saw an article in the Indianapolis Star that said that Jim Merritt apologized for his vote with RFRA to try to get back into the good graces of the LGBTQIA plus community. I think I'm getting.
How many
right,
letters
right?
do they need? I'm all
lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer, intersex, asexual.
What's the plus? Anything else? That's the
pansexual. I'm a straight white male. I'm not totally versed up in all the lingo, but it's a whole community. I'm sure that someone else that's listening could tell us. I just don't know. I know the main 6.
I only know the first 4, the LGBTQ.
Yeah.
LGBTQ. 5.
That's a 7. I know 7. 8.
I'm
if
old
you count
school.
Pan.
Yeah, I don't know. I
don't totally understand all of the differences between some of them. But, people can do whatever they want.
I feel like maybe you need to make a handy graphic or something to explain where the parts go and because that seems like you need an advanced engineering degree to understand. Is there an infographic? If somebody has an infographic, please email it to dakota@bosshogofliberty.com.
I'm sure there's infographics all over the internet that explains every single
preferably
different acronym. I just know LGBTQIA plus, and then the only plus I know is flex hetero.
What the hell is that?
And pansexual. Flex hetero means like you're 90% straight, but like 10%.
Is that like after 3 beers you change your mind? What's that mean?
I don't know, but I know it's a thing. I just learned it this week. I heard it for the first time on a podcast. As someone described themselves as flex hetero, and I was like, "What in the world is that?" So I looked it up, and that's what it means. The Urban Dictionary definition was 90% straight, 10% gay.
Which category are you in?
I would guess I'm 100% straight.
There's no flex.
I don't.
You're not
think
like a
there's any
WRT
flex.
in fantasy football where I'm a wide receiver, but then sometimes I could get points as a running back.
No, I think I'm 100% straight at this point. I've made up my mind. I'm married to a woman.
Yes, quite committed. Yes,
yes.
I was in your wedding. You were in mine. We move on. All right. Great. So speaking of Pride Month, Greg Pence was in town, allegedly.
Yeah, Greg Pence said that he was. I saw on his Facebook page. I'm sure that he's not the one that's posting on all of his social media. He has a lady do that for him. I'm sure.
So I made the joke because we heard. I think we heard Monday or Tuesday, that Greg Pence was coming to town.
Yeah,
and over the course of this, over the course of 2018 and now into 2019, literally every damn time Greg Pence is coming to town, I'm out of town. I'm in Washington when he's in our town. He's in Muncie. I'm in Washington. I'm in Louisville, and hey, Greg Pence is coming to Newcastle.
And Chris, part-time producer Chris Guffey sent us a picture of his social media page.
He was going to go. Guffey was going to try to go.
He's like, who's free Thursday to go meet Greg Pence? And nobody could make it.
You were going to be in a bucket truck, and I was going to be south. I was going to be in Dixie.
Correct. And we're like, no big deal. But then his Democrat competition, Janine Lee Lake, I saw today, she posted.
She showed up.
She was like, I was there. I went. And
it was at the Henry County Library.
She went with some folks from the Moms Demand Action pro-gun control group. And they wanted to speak to Greg Pence about some issues that are important to them. And he's not there. He's not at his own open house and constituent meet and greet. What?
Did they ever announce that he was coming, or was it just implied that, hey, Greg Pence is having an open house?
It just implied, hey, there's a constituent meet and greet and open house for the people who I represent. So you would think that the man who's representing these people with the questions and concerns would be there himself. No, he had some people that were wearing his logo on their polos, right? So he wasn't actually there. Who knows where he was at? He might have been with Trump in the UK for all I know. Was he? Does he get to go on trips with? Does he get some special privileges since his brother is the vice president?
I mean, I think they can fly any member of Congress on an official tour or junket, whatever, if they want to.
They can.
It's entirely plausible. The campaign page made a D-Day post today, but nothing else. The official Congressman Greg Pence. Our staff was happy to help constituents today, and they took a photograph, but. Yeah, it just says my staff.
Did they delete the post after he was like, oh, that was Thursday? I had a lunch meeting Thursday. I can't miss that. And they were like,
yeah,
well,
I guess in reality, it's technically they didn't say I'm not coming. He said June 4th at 9:24 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Representative Greg Pence announced, one of my top priorities is constituent services. Join us, which would imply you and me.
Yeah.
For community office hours this Thursday in Newcastle, 11 to 1. Community office hours hosted by the office of U.S. Congressman Greg Pence. But the text for U.S. Congressman Greg Pence is like 90-point font. Yeah. And the hosted by the office of is like 10-point font. Between the two things,
you got to read the fine print.
Like, community office hours, U.S. Congressman Greg Pence.
Look between the lines.
Actually, he'll send somebody. Help with a federal agency, military academy nominations, commendations and greetings, grant applications. If you need a flag or a tour and a ticket, you come to this. Doesn't say anything about a photo or an actual meeting with congressmen. So, I guess technically.
I'm glad I didn't skip.
I'm glad I didn't take
on
a vacation day to go, right?
I'm sorry, I need to leave work early so that I can go meet the Congressman Greg Pence and take the Zoom recorder. You show up and he's not even freaking there. I would have been so mad. I would have been calling his office later.
Maybe we need another official request.
Yeah, we probably should.
See if he'll come on.
Now that you're elected, you have nothing to fear. Please come on the Boss Hog of Liberty.
I feel like all of Newcastle got slighted. Not just because listen, it's not unreasonable when
the people in Montana got slighted.
When Greg Pence's brother, Mike Pence, was congressman, he had town halls at the library in Newcastle. He would come to our community and he had town halls here. It would not have been out of the question to have expected him to have come in person.
Yep. He should have been here.
Dear people of Henry County and people of Indiana, I just want you to send an email.
My fellow Hoosiers.
And say, what the hell?
Yeah.
False advertisement? This doesn't feel right. At least to me. That said, I was in Kentucky anyway. But I feel bad for the people that showed up thinking they were going to get an audience with the congressman.
Yeah, I would have been really mad.
So, we've studied this, we've watched this, and it's. I want more than a photo op congressman. That's basically the situation. Is I want somebody that's actually going to be invested in the community, show up, talk to people, not come through just at campaign time, but actually have somebody that wants to have a relationship with the community.
If I had gone, I would have been ranting a whole lot more right now.
Yeah.
That's just a crappy move to pull. Like you're gonna say that constituent services is your top priority, and you're gonna send some no-name staff that you pay.
Well, I don't want to be mad at the staff.
I'm not mad at the staff. I'm mad at him for sending them in his place whenever he says that it's his top priority to serve his constituents. You're not serving your constituents. You're passing your dirty laundry onto your staffers that work for you in Washington, D.C. It's a crappy move.
Okay. All right. You feel better?
I guess Greg Pence is a liar now, too. Guess what, Greg? You're on the list.
Who's on your list of liars?
Let's not get into it. Let's move on to wind energy, if we're not already controversial enough. So let's talk about windmills.
So this week, there was an application received, I believe on Wednesday, at the Henry County Courthouse, the Planning Commission, their office.
I heard it was Wednesday. I got a text message that said, "Hey Dakota, you guys might have some news to report on Boss Hog of Liberty later, because there was an application that was submitted by was it the Calpine Group to the Zoning Commission for zoning some areas of agricultural land for wind farm development.
So they're asking
correct?
for a commission approved use for a wind farm, Big Blue River, which is their developers have been in the area for a long time, and potentially it is 38 turbines to be constructed in northern Henry County. I've not had the time, to be honest, to review the entire application. I've looked at it at a high level, but I've not had a chance to actually study the entire map or go through all of it. Just got filed this week, and like I said, I've been traveling for work. But it would be
it wasn't Calpine. I was wrong.
Well, it is. It is that group,
right,
but
Calpine
they have
group
formed Big Blue River Wind Farm LLC in Houston,
right.
Texas. So that's the name of the development group. So that's who officially filed. And it would be in Fall Creek, Jefferson, Prairie, Henry, Harrison, and Greensboro Townships. So 38 sites, meaning foundations and turbines with
38 windmills.
38 windmills being constructed. There are a potential of in their application of 5 different turbines, anywhere between 269 feet and 302 feet tall, with blades. Basically, the entire height of the thing would be under 500 feet. 500 feet to 492 feet, depending on which one it is.
is the maximum that they would get here.
So they're keeping their options open. The reason they've got all of the potentials in there is I think they probably would competitively bid all of these different manufacturers, and then they spec out what they would actually put in that. So it's not entirely decided. But now what's happening is they've filed this application, and it will go. And I don't think they've had a hearing scheduled yet, but they basically filed an application, and it will go before the Planning Commission. And that 7-member group will decide if they're going to approve a commission-approved use.
Yep.
If it gets through that, it would then go to the county commissioners, who would then have to decide to accept or reject the commission-approved use. If it had come through the Planning Commission, at that point, they would have the zoning approved to construct something. At that point, there are 4-mile buffer zones around certain towns, including Cadiz, which is where a lot of these are,
right?
Which would then probably trigger a lawsuit.
Wouldn't you think that? Do you think that their application, which I know that we haven't looked through it extensively yet, but I would think that the application that they send in for the different sites, for the wind farm project, would they not already take into consideration those 4-mile buffer zones for the different site plans? I would imagine that since technically it is state law, because these people are grandfathered in, that or the townships that set the 4-mile buffer zone, they are grandfathered into this law that they can't have the wind farms there. I would think that they would just not fight it. I mean, it's state law, right?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see happen is this is the potentially the Planning Commission will have grounds to deny it based upon it not being consistent with local ordinances. Mm-hmm. That would be a grounds for them to vote no on the use. That's the first possibility. If it gets all the way through the council or through the Planning Commission and through the commissioners, then at that point, I think there would probably be grounds for a legal challenge, and we'll see what happens. If that doesn't happen, then at that point, and they get constructed, by the way, we haven't talked about the financial side of this at all, but if they got constructed, then the towns could then go in and start citing people. It's not a criminal citation; it's a civil citation, I believe.
My question just is, we don't know. I haven't seen the sites of the 38 build sites, if they are actually inside of those 4-mile buffer zones or not, because then that makes it to where there's not that big of an argument based on zoning on the zoning commission side of things, right? If the land is already zoned that way and they are legally allowed to do it. Because if they are, then what's the zoning commission's argument as far as just straight up zoning regulations go?
I believe there are 3 different metrics that they use when they make their determination, and if it's some of them are somewhat arbitrary, so they can basically just say, you know what, we're not doing it.
Right.
Essentially, right. I mean, they have enough leeway to say, yeah, I don't think it's consistent with what we want to do here, but I think it would be a very easy justification if they wanted to say, no, some of these are within the 4 miles and we're rejecting it for that reason.
Right. Yeah, I think so too.
That's a very simple out. And as we're looking at this here, I'm trying to pull up the PDF and actually get you some geography. There's basically a 3-page topographic map that was submitted with the application. And what we're going to do here. You keep touching my screen like it's going to.
I wasn't touching. I was just counting. You had one map pulled up, and it had some marks of the wind turbines, and there were only 8 of them on that map. So
yeah, well, it's a 3-page deal. We're going to try. As we're tap dancing here, we are going to try.
If young Guffey was here, it would make it a little bit easier.
This is old school, like we said.
Part-time producer.
We're going as we. You brought us down this rabbit hole. You painted us into this corner, and I am going to do my best.
That's a pretty important story.
I'm going to do my best to answer the question that you asked. That's incredibly technical.
We talked about windmills so much that we put one in the logo. So
that was existing.
But I think it's really interesting that they're just going ahead and applying for the application. They didn't. Because typically they would have sought an abatement before they applied for the application for the zoning permits, right?
So this is an item of contention that we've seen. People have said, well, they've never built one of these without a tax abatement, and then it became, well, they have because Jay County. There's a project in Jay County, and those guys didn't get an abatement. Jay County, in fact, did get a tax abatement in November of last year. That $150 million project. It's called our project here in Henry County would be called the Big Blue River project. That one is called Bitter Ridge, and Bitter Ridge did receive a 10-year tax abatement. We are trying to.
It appears that on the maps that they gave out, and all of this is that you can find it on Henry County's website, but it appears that they have black dotted lines around each turbine, the buffer zone for that specific turbine. I just saw on the map the town of Cadiz, and some of them were actually it seemed like close proximity.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to work out here for you, but we're efforting.
It's such a large document because of the image files that are inside of it that it takes a while to load.
Yeah, they're definitely within 4 miles of the town of Cadiz.
Yep. So they didn't include those 4 mile buffer zones in their application for their application to the zoning commission. I don't know. They're close.
Upon my review, BR Turbine Foundation BR12 and site BR13 are definitely within that range, and BR23. There's one just north of the old peaking plant there, so we can do a little. I can do a little distance measurement here as we. Do that for me, because the one in Cadiz is the one that's interesting because it's. I don't know. We'll see. I was a person that thought that if there were enough votes on the council that would deny an abatement, then they would never even pursue looking at Henry County as having potential for growth in the wind industry. But I'm very shocked to learn that is not the case. Well, I think it's probably a decision that they're making that you say, okay, I've gone this far. They may try to call the bluff of the community and say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to try and get this, get the abatement and get my conditional approved use. And then once everybody's just kind of said, okay, well, it's happening. Let's go for it. 5,000 feet, which is just, that's not It's definitely not 4 miles outside of Cadiz. So yeah, 5,000 feet west essentially is the rough estimate I've got here.
Wow.
So yeah, not 4 miles. Definitely in violation of that.
So they didn't even include that in the.
Yeah, and I didn't think they did.
In the original
once you see the site plan here,
that's interesting to me. I wonder why they wouldn't take that into account. Why they wouldn't take that law into account whenever they decided the plots of land that they were going to use for windmills, because they knew it was just going to cause legal trouble for them, right?
Yeah. Once again, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of the Planning Commission. If the Planning Commission says no, then it doesn't move forward at all.
But I guess
if it does get approved there, then at that point you say, well, maybe they'll sue. Maybe they'll sue, and then who knows? But if they get the approval, and I think no matter what's going to happen, this is probably going to end up in court regardless.
Yeah,
I think ultimately that's where where your decision is going to be,
which is unfortunate.
The
wind company definitely has deeper pockets.
We teased something a moment ago
that you're gonna go to.
I'm gonna go see how long Dakota does.
All right. I mean, I can talk about other things. Let's talk about YouTube.
Talk about the weather.
Talk about. Well, today it was nice and sunny, a high of 88 degrees, and I was outside all day working outside. It was a good time. One of the things that I talked about at the beginning of the show that Jeremiah didn't have scribbled down on his page of notes was this controversy with the Vox apocalypse with Steven Crowder and a Vox reporter. It's been a big controversy that's been going on in the Twitter sphere, because Steven Crowder apparently went on a rant about Antifa, and there's a reporter on Vox that his last name is Maza, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Carlos Maza, and he called him a queer lispy Mexican is what he called this Carlos Maza, and he was also wearing a T-shirt that had Che Guevara on it, and it said "Socialism is for," and then it was supposed to look like it said fags, but it had a fig tree leaf where the A is supposed to be, and I guess Che Guevara, there's a connection there between him and fig trees. So it was supposed to be kind of this little joke where it actually
I'm back.
says
You're
figs.
talking about Mazda versus Figs. This is the Mazda car company versus the Fig Newton Corporation.
Figs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza on and this big fight that's been going on with YouTube. So he calls him a queer, lispy Mexican, and that is
a bad choice during.
Yeah, and I wish Chris was here and I could play the audio of how he said it, because if you don't know,
it's Pride Month.
Steven Crowder, his show Ladder with Crowder is a YouTube channel, and he does a conservative David Letterman, Johnny Carson type late night show vibe on YouTube.
Boy, can you reference any more shows that are off the air?
No. I'll reference one on the air, Stephen Colbert. Except it's like a conservative version of what all of the late night shows are. Typically left leaning hosts that just try to dig on conservative viewpoints a lot. So he took the other side, and his occupation beforehand was as a stand up comedian, right? So he's making this joke, and he's like, in this queer lisp having Mexican over on Vox, and it's supposed to be a joke. Definitely not a joke to Carlos Maza, who is very open about his sexuality. He's not like he's trying to hide that he's a gay man in America, and it's not like he's a reporter that has a lisp that somehow no one knows he has a lisp because he does videos, right? So he didn't say anything that was trying to oust him in any way, but I can see how it would be offensive for sure. Anyway, Carlos gets very upset, very, very upset, starts a Twitter storm, and he is trying to call on YouTube to totally deplatform Steven Crowder. And YouTube sends him an email and says, upon further review, Steven Crowder's video does not violate our terms of service in any way.
We just
and
want to weaponize social
remain.
media against people. This is the move now in the last couple
Right.
of years.
So
you
he
try to get
says
somebody deplatformed.
he says he posts this email that he got from YouTube that says that Steven Crowder was okay, and he posts it to Twitter and starts up a fiery storm against Steven Crowder and YouTube. YouTube quickly realizes that this was not the best PR move.
All of the targets are on them now, and
Yes.
they're the problem.
So
And Google got afraid.
they decide that they are going to demonetize Steven Crowder's YouTube channel.
Joke's on you, YouTube. We're not monetized. We can say what we want.
That's right.
We take private money. Thank you, Patreon.
So they tell Steven Crowder, because of this incident, your way of making a livelihood and an income for you and your family is gone because of these words that you said on our platform.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
This is all happening today. This is
yeah. It's been a developing story, but it's been an interesting story because there's been a lot of different conversations about, this is obviously violating some sort of speech and freedom of speech, just general rule for society that we have in our heads because we've grown up in America where we have this amazing freedom of speech in the First Amendment.
you have
But
the freedom of
then-
speech, but then you don't own that platform.
Right, but then it's this company says
They have a policy.
not here.
But the problem is if they're arbitrary,
Yeah.
they're not following
The
rules.
fact that they
They're-
flip-flopped, I think,
Right.
is the biggest problem here. They first said, nah, this is okay. And then they said, well, now that you're mad at us, it's not.
So then that's leading to people saying, well, we need to regulate YouTube.
Right.
Which is what we always go to this, and we have to break up Microsoft. They're too strong and popular, right? Now we have to split Facebook up. We have to deal with YouTube. They're too big and powerful. We should have more than one company that does what YouTube does.
It's an interesting argument. I think
They have to be regulated like a utility, is what you're reporting.
The argument is that Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, they have become public squares where everyone is on them. Everyone uses them, and if you start restricting the speech, then you are restricting the speech of a certain amount of the population.
But a public utility it's not practical to build, say a power company or natural gas company
Yep.
or a telecommunications company. It's not practical to put the physical infrastructure in to come to your location. So we have a public utility that comes to your house, and your home is served by Vectron Energy, and your home is served by Four-Letter Electric Company, and your home is served by municipal water. Because it wouldn't make sense for Dakota and Jeremiah to start our own water company and run lines right next to the other company's water lines.
Right.
That's why we have a public utility. That's not what's happening with YouTube. We could start an alternate video platform.
But the counter argument to that is
Facebook Live works as well as YouTube, right?
Right.
There are other ways to
the
get out
counter
there.
argument is like, you can start another company, and we have other ones like Vimeo, for example. Who the hell is on Vimeo? Have you ever pulled up Vimeo in lieu of YouTube to watch
I used
a video?
Periscope for a week or two. But here's the thing is that regulation actually going to be better? Does it just make you feel
I
better?
don't-
Is it
I don't
actually,
think it is.
Say we go in and we say, okay, yeah, we're going to regulate Facebook. So we're going to have some white shirt in Virginia that decides, well, you have to do this or you can't do this. Or you have these arbitrary rules. Well, if you want to be on Facebook, you have to tick these boxes and you have to
Right.
get your Facebook application fee and you have to do all of this crap.
I think one of the best arguments against the regulation of the tech companies, the big three that we were talking about, would be when do you decide that this place has reached the level where it needs to be regulated? Or do you regulate the whole of the internet and say no platform at all on the internet can restrict the speech of any person? And it's this weird dynamic because a lot of these companies do have more left-leaning people in power, left-leaning employees, which they might not. So the platform itself might not have a left-leaning bias because it is a platform, but the employees that work there and review all of the reports that are given.
There's still people involved.
They
right?
usually have left-leaning bias because most of these people live in California and left-leaning places, so they just, oh yeah, that's offensive. That was calling a person a derogatory term based on his sexuality. Steven Crowder's gone. But you have this human element of error, and what they want to do is get away from it. I don't think that this is going to be a problem for very much longer as artificial intelligence gets more and more advanced. We're already seeing it with the algorithms that Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have. I think that eventually there's not going to be that room for the human error on reviewing these certain things. But right now, it's just not good enough. The algorithms aren't good enough because they don't know how to make the distinction between Richard Spencer has a YouTube channel. He's doing YouTube videos and he's saying that he hates black people. And then Richard Spencer is doing an interview on a different show that is trying to debate his beliefs. An algorithm can't distinguish between those two because they just say anything with Richard Spencer is gone, right? And that's why whenever Facebook came out and they banned Alex Jones and they said, unless you are specifically saying Alex Jones is horrible, you're going to have that post deleted or you're going to be banned or whatever. It is because their algorithm just isn't smart enough to figure it out.
Here's the problem with any of this censorship stuff is that it all gets looked at through the lens of the day. Yeah. And what was okay 2 years ago, all of a sudden you don't think is okay anymore. You mentioned Conan O'Brien earlier, Stephen Colbert, Conan O'Brien, these late night hosts. Today's the anniversary of D-Day too, by the way. 75 years ago, the Americans landed in Normandy. I was listening to Conan, and he recently on his podcast had Bob Newhart on, one of my absolute favorites. Bob is 90 years old. His best friend was a guy named Don Rickles, who was a stand-up comic.
I didn't know he was still alive.
Bob Newhart's still alive. Don Rickles died a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Rickles was an absolute. He was a comic of a different era, and even in the 70s and 80s, he was making jokes about anybody that was different than him. And I listened on Conan's podcast, and then that got me to actually go out and get the Hi Bob on Amazon Audible, which is about a 4-hour long podcast type audiobook with Bob Newhart. Yeah. And he's sitting down and talking to a bunch of these different comedians. So a lot of it's with Conan. And they got into this conversation about Don Rickles. And he almost got a pass at the time. And I think about somebody like him now. And he's the kind of guy that would have gotten deplatformed because he would have made jokes about people that had a different religion than him or a different sexual orientation than him or a different, if you're not Jewish or if you were Catholic or Jewish or Italian or Irish, all of these different things that in the 50s and 60s and 70s that used to get joked about. I just don't want to live in that world where we can't make these decisions for ourselves.
And the reason that I pointed out that Crowder's show, Louder with Crowder, is this late night type show and that he was a stand-up comedian before is can't remember who the writer was, but basically said that the jester is the only one who can tell the truth to the king. So that is the role of the comic in our society, is to point out these things that we aren't comfortable talking about with people and strangers in our daily lives, but they can point out these things on a stage and we laugh at it and we're like, oh, wow, that is a ridiculous thing that is in our society. And all of this, what you were just talking about, reminds me of a sketch on Chappelle's show. And it was Dave Chappelle. He brought up this. He said, "No one's going to listen to me and my ideas, and they would get offended. But if they come out of the mouth of a young, pretty white female, then no one can be mad." So he brought up this pretty white female that was going to sing the stuff that he wrote on note cards, and it was like, police are discriminating against black males in society, and there was one that was like, the CIA is the one that distributed crack cocaine into black neighborhoods in Detroit, and she's singing it in like an opera tone, and it's this hilarious bit that is like, who really can tell the truth in our society if we get if we get rid of the comedians that are trying to make jokes about it, and if you do say something about it, then you just get mobbed by everyone on Twitter. And then in the case of Steven Crowder, your entire way of making money for your family is ripped out from underneath you.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. I mean,
I don't like how this is getting weaponized. I really don't.
But on the flip side, this Carlos Maza guy, it is painfully obvious to me that he is viewing the way that he is portrayed by someone like Steven Crowder, who has a totally opposite viewpoint as him, and the way he is being portrayed on these other platforms as a total weapon against him personally. So he gets on Twitter where he knows that in his bubble, his people love him, and he's going to complain about it to his bubble, and they will have his back and defend him.
You're in your echo chamber.
Yeah, the internet for these people has become their entire world. It's this weird thing that we have got going on in our society.
So we will stay tuned. Stay tuned to Fig Newton versus Mazda.
I could talk about this for hours. Because I see these things and I get so frustrated with social media in general. It's why I stay off of Twitter, because I can't stand it.
We are the worst Twitterers. We do not Twitter very often. We hardly tweet. I do much more than you do.
Yeah,
and I'm very much just watching it for basically for IndyCar news. And Colts news.
Dan Cummins has a joke that says every time that he feels good about humanity or himself, he just opens up Facebook and he scrolls until he's pissed off again. That's me, but with Twitter. Facebook, I'm okay to deal with, but Twitter just makes me angry every time.
So I do want to get back. I started the D-Day comment and talked about Don Rickles, and I didn't know it, but I heard on that Hi Bob audiobook that Rickles was actually a bomber pilot, and he was in D-Day. So he was the third pilot in. And Newhart was talking about him. He's like, yeah, think guys like that, you'd think that, well, they would have just, you'd get a government check and be able to go on and, hey, you've done enough for the country. Thank you so much. You can do what you want. And instead, they go on to these amazing careers, but it was a different era and those guys are just phenomenal. And, 75 years ago today, I remember 25 years ago, I guess the 50th anniversary with Clinton, going over and having memories there. And now, this is the last big one that you're going to have the actual veterans there. So this morning I woke up and I'm sitting in a Hampton Inn in Louisville, Kentucky, and watching the CBS News, and it's about 1:00, and they're having services in the cemetery at Normandy, right on the cliffs. And you've got veterans there that served in World War II. 75 years ago, they were there. So they're in their, if they were your age when they served, they're 95, 97, 98, 99 years old.
Did you see the 90-some-year-old man that parachuted down onto the beaches?
97, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that.
That was awesome. And he's like, it was a perfect day to jump. Loved it. I did it again. And I was like, whoa, what a man. Like,
that's really cool.
It is 97 years old, and he's the most manly man that's on the planet. Like, he is, he should be the guy that's doing the Dos Equis commercials. Most interesting man in the world. 97 years old and parachuted down onto the beaches of Normandy, just like he did when he was 22.
It's an amazing thing.
It's crazy. It's amazing.
After you're done watching the show tonight, go watch Band of Brothers. Just go check it out.
Ed Bell had a good post about his dad. Ed Bell, friend of the show.
Local legend.
I'm going to call him. Yeah, local legend. Farmer in Hagerstown at Bell's Strawberry Farm. You can go pick your own strawberries there.
It's the season
a cool
right now.
Yep.
We can't get beans in the ground, but your berries are ready.
They're cheap and they're tasty, and you get to pick them yourself, and it's a fun day with your lady. And
do you pick them yourself? I just go buy the ones they've already got picked. I don't actually go out there.
It's fun to go pick them yourself. Chris, part-time producer Chris Guffey's here.
I see a ghost.
But anyway, Ed Bell had a really good post about his dad, and whenever D-Day was happening, his dad was on a ship getting ready for an invasion in Japan. And he talked about how everyone talks about D-Day because all the reporters, this is his dad's words, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it in front of me. But he's like, all the reporters talk about D-Day and not about us because the reporters could just go back to London and write their stories in a pub. I think that was funny. And he just talked about the things that happened in World War II with every single one of the soldiers that was serving at that time is a totally different world. It's a totally different landscape to even think about in this day and age. The fact that these guys some of them were in boats, some of them were coming down on parachutes, and they landed on a beach and they just ran. They ran towards where the enemies were, and they were thousands on each side, and they were all firing at each other. They were all trying to kill each other right there on the beaches, and so many people died and lost their lives on both sides because of it. And luckily, the Allies came through, but it's an amazing time
that you referenced.
Yes,
and basically he said they were in Saipan, and he said every year on D-Day, Dad would respectfully say these boys had it rough for sure, but nobody remembers Saipan. We fought just as hard there and took the same kind of losses. D-Day gets the press because none of these reporters wanted to risk getting torpedoed on a ship in the hot Pacific when they could write their stories in London in a bar full of girls.
Said his dad fought in 13 major battles in 18 months. That's crazy.
That's phenomenal.
An 18-month deployment, that's a double deployment now, right, Chris? As standard deployment is 9 months? Okay.
Nobody can hear what he said, so you have to repeat that into the old speaker.
But back then, Audrey and I have been watching stand-up comedy at night, which is why I keep referencing comedy in this episode.
I'm glad you're finally fun.
Yeah, but there was another comic that was talking about PTSD and it might have been Dan Carlin. Might have been one of his earlier bits, but he said, it used to be called battle fatigue, and it was simple, and then the word got more complicated as the years go on. And that, crap, I just lost the punchline. I'm so sorry.
And bad joke telling
anyway,
by Dakota.
Yes, it was a horrible joke telling. I lost the punchline. I think it's a Dan Carlin joke. Anywho, PTSD used to be called battle fatigue back in World War II, and they didn't know what caused it, right? They just knew these guys are coming back from battle, and something was going on in their heads, but they weren't sure what it was. And now we have post-traumatic stress disorder, and we can pinpoint the areas of the brain that are more and least active if someone has gone through horrific and tragic events, and we can totally diagnose their mental health, and we can try to get them back to normal, as close to normal as what you can be. That in itself is an amazing testament to the way that our battlefield treatment and our post treatment has improved throughout the years.
It's probably improved some. I'm not convinced that they're anywhere near where they need to be on that front at all.
I don't think that they're anywhere where they need to be, but think about the guys that were coming home from Vietnam and just ignored.
Yeah, I agree that obviously
we have huge strides to go, but I think that if we look at the past and we continue to look towards the future, then we can see that there's going to be more great strides made for future servicemen and women of the country.
Well, two things.
I hope.
One, let's stop making so many veterans in that way. Let's stop putting people in conflict. But two, sure as hell don't want to be complacent, because it's affected my family very, very much.
Right.
In military suicide and what happens there. It's absolutely horrible.
Well, that's part of the biggest issue is that there's not a single person that is in this room or is even listening to this podcast that doesn't know at least one person that isn't seriously affected by something that they saw on the battlefield or that they experienced. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So we do have great places to go, and we need to get there, but like you said, the biggest thing that we can do to help in the future is to just stop sending them to die and to do these, to go onto battlefields in wars that we have no business being in.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
that heavy real quick.
That got really intense. But 75 years ago today. All right. One last thing I wanted to get into today.
Can't talk about D-Day without getting really intense. It's like the most intense battlefield mission that's ever happened in the history of the United States. That's an intense moment in our history. It's going to be intense radio.
One of the most important
If it's not intense, if you have a podcast and you don't get intense talking about D-Day, you're doing it wrong.
All right. This week, this is another developing story. Fair Oaks Dairy, which is the biggest dairy in the country. It's located in Newton County, Indiana, about halfway between Chicago and Indianapolis. Had a undercover video that was released online. As of last night, it had about 250,000 views on YouTube. And it was highlighting animal cruelty. Very, very touchy subject in the agricultural community. Everybody that I know that's in that industry, not on the corporate big farm side, but on the local dairy side, on the local producer side, the family farmers that are in our area that I know, are incredibly intense advocates for their animals.
Yes.
We've got a number of mutual friends that work very hard to take care of and keep their animals happy. So we see this video that came out this week from Fair Oaks, and it was pretty rough. There were people that were. Fair Oaks like I said, is the largest dairy, so it's a commercial operation. And we saw pictures of animals that weren't eating, that were, instead of being coaxed, they were hit. There was some rough treatment going on. Very, very explicit video from a whistleblower.
Yep. From Animal Recovery.
Yeah. And
ARM.
Yeah. So this group releases this video. Immediately people are like, whoa, this is not good. The farm today released a video saying that they have policies in place that anybody that does anything with animal cruelty, you're supposed to report it. And apparently there were 4 employees that were shown on the video. 3 of them had been reported at some point in the past and had all been dismissed. So the 4th individual had not yet been reported and was dismissed yesterday after the video came out. And the company basically had a mea culpa saying, hey, our systems aren't working. We don't have cameras everywhere that there's animal versus people contact, and this isn't okay. And I looked at it and said, there's a couple things going on here. One, a whistleblower came in, and now the market's working where this company's having to react. But 2, it sounds like the farm's too big. Instead of the people, instead of Cade, who if you watch Cade's Snapchat, you see Cade out there delivering cows, rubbing on cows, taking care of his animals. He's the farmer. He's not a corporate farm. It's a family farm. And he's out there dealing with his animals, and he doesn't have 3 levels of corporate management from the owner or the policymaker all the way down to the person that's touching the animal. And I think that's the breakdown that we see.
Cade has a real investment in his animals that are on his farm, right?
And they need them. They know that the happier the animal is, the more comfortable the animal is, the better it's going to produce, the better life it's going to have, but also the more money it's going to make for them, the more productive it's going to be. There's no incentive to abusing an animal.
No.
If you are actually the guy that's making them, that's invested in it. But if it's a line job and you're making $12 an hour, all of a sudden you just don't care.
You really don't care. You have no investment in the livelihood of this animal. You're dealing with hundreds upon hundreds of them every single day. So they just become like a piece of plastic to you. It's just like any other
it's a widget.
Little job that anybody else has. And I saw some comments on the statement that Fair Oaks Farms put out, and basically them apologizing. I didn't see the video. You were watching it before the show started. I didn't get a chance to look through any of the comments, but I did see some like some people that were animal rights activists in the comment sections of their statement, and they were saying like, "Oh, that this is totally representative of some of the BS that happens on all the farms around the country." And I'm like, hold on, take a step back and look and watch the video. Like, watch the video of when the animals were getting abused, and look at all the money that they had to spend on the housing for each of those calves. All of those calves had like their own individual big old like dog house shelter, right? And they each had their own individual pen. They had really good living conditions on that farm. I mean, compared to some of the videos you see coming from like South America and China, where a lot of grocery store meat comes from, that you buy places. A lot of it comes from like places like Thailand and Taiwan. Anyway, a lot of the videos that you get shown from other like animal rights activist organizations like PETA that show just horrible living conditions for the animals, they're not coming from the United States. I want to make that clear. Also, in the video that the ARM organization handed out on Fair Oaks Dairy, their living conditions were very, very good, with the exception of whenever those 4 employees were dealing with those animals, right?
So the call to action in the film was no dairy.
Yeah.
Stop consuming animal products. It was ARM Investigations as a group, and basically they said, don't buy any milk, don't buy any dairy products, don't do this. You have the power. Go protest.
No mas.
And apparently there's a tie-in with Coca-Cola. They were telling people to protest Coca-Cola as well. Yeah. I don't entirely understand that connection.
I didn't look into it.
But they were basically trying to protest the dairy industry, protest that farm in particular, and the Coca-Cola Corporation. That is not what should happen. Yes, Fair Oaks, it sounds like, has an issue that's happened.
They have some work to do.
And that sounds like they're taking corrective action. And they said today in their video they're going to install cameras everywhere. And they admitted, hey, we made a bad decision. We wanted to trust our employees. Obviously, that was the wrong decision to make. And they've got a management problem. They said that everybody takes an everybody takes an animal cruelty class ahead of time before you ever get in contact. And they've got a policy that says if anybody does anything to an animal, you get tossed. And they had done that with 3 of the 4. That said, there's a big difference between a big corporate farm and the family farm. Like I said, when you have skin in the game, your livelihood depends upon that cow, that calf producing, being happy,
right?
And I think that's the issue you have. That's the reality of it.
I agree.
It's difficult. It's very difficult because if you say don't buy certain brands of milk or whatever, we know how much trouble the dairy industry has had. We've talked about that in the last year with Walmart, one of the biggest grocers in the country, starting their own dairy operation and moving milk contracts. This is not good. The answer is not to stop buying dairy. It is absolutely not.
Well,
maybe you can boycott the Fair Oaks brand, but don't boycott the entire industry.
I don't even know why you would boycott the Fair Oaks brand. I don't think I genuinely believe the owner, whenever he gave out his statement and said like, whoa, this is bad and I'm going to try to fix it. I genuinely believe that because I noticed that there was about 15 minutes of footage in the video that they released, and they said that
4 minutes.
I watched a 15-minute.
Okay, I saw a 4-minute video.
That I watched a full 15-minute video from ARM, and it was they started working there in like October of last year. So over these months, they caught these 4 employees, and those are the employees that they caught, and the company recognized, we had already fired 3 of those guys, right?
Yep, that is the case.
So,
and the 4th was dismissed. I'm looking at ARM Investigations website, and they literally only have a 4-minute video with 341,000 views.
I sent you a link to the 15-minute one I watched.
Well, I
don't know.
I don't know. It's been a week.
This was like all edited. It looked very much like a PETA video where it had like it started off and it had like old news stories, like old newscasters talking about an investigations happens in the dairy industry, and then they go into their little video. Part of the video I watched was also that Fair Oaks Farms claims to never send their male calves to veal.
And then they said that they followed a truck. I don't know. I did not get to watch the entire Fair Oaks response video today.
It seems strange to me because veal is pretty normal. You go to a lot of restaurants, you see it. Why in the world would they say that they don't send calves to be processed at veal processing plants and lie about it if veal is pretty much just an accepted thing in our culture? Why lie about it at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's I can't answer that one. I don't know enough on that one.
I don't either.
Veal Parmesan's a very popular dish, at least when I was a kid. I don't think I've had veal in a long time since then.
I've never had veal.
But, aren't you just pure as a wind-driven snow?
Never seemed very...
You've never consumed a baby animal. I thought. Congratulations.
Never seemed appealing to me. I've hunted deer since I was a little kid, and I've seen a lot of little baby fawns with their mamas, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough of this.
Can't eat a baby if you're pro-life.
I guess it's time for final thoughts. Looking around the room, it's remarkably empty, except for Chris Guffey, who shut up but hasn't gone to a microphone, so I assume he's just simply going to sit here and do nothing. Guffey, do you have a report? You were out campaigning tonight or being a candidate. Did you attend a meeting that was worthwhile? Did you learn anything?
I attended the Stellar meeting. No, you're good. You don't have to zoom out. Nobody wants to see my face anyways. Attended the Stellar meeting that was open to the public. Started at 6:30.
Were you in Knightstown? Where were you?
No, we were here in town at the local chambers, the city council chambers.
Don't talk so close to it. I'm trying to help you, but you're just chasing it down like a lost puppy.
Yeah. Anyways, so we had a meeting open to the public. Just kind of wanted ideas about what did the public want, what was some assets that we could spend the Stellar grant if we get. For the people that are listening and don't know, we are a top 4 finalist in the Stellar Grant program.
The Henry County community basically is a massive $20 million.
Henry County, Knightstown, and Newcastle are all as
Making
a region.
The rest of life, the best of life.
No, we're safe and welcome. Safe and welcome.
It's a massive $20 million Okra grant that
could be
that will go to 2 of 4 communities that are finalists.
You're wrong.
That's not the case?
No, it's just 1 now.
I thought it was 2.
No, so see, it used to be that way. 2 years ago, it was individual cities, and then last year they moved to regionals, and then this year they brought it in, and now it is the top 4 finalists.
They're all going to get some money.
Yes. So even if we don't win, which the way it sounds is very unlikely that we don't, because Dr. Kathy Hamilton has put in tremendous work. Kenan Gray has put in tremendous work. All these people have put in tremendous work into this. And anyways, so even if we don't win, we get $333,000 to split between Henry County, Newcastle, Knightstown, with plans that we have are currently making. July 1st is the deadline for that. Now, if we win, it's $22 million. And then the other competitors get their $333,000 to split. So
okay,
but
what did you learn tonight?
Skate park is a big issue. They want to expand that. Patty Broyles brought it up, and my cousin Jonathan Latham was there. One of the Pointer brothers was there to make points and discuss about how we can expand this and how much business like the city and the county gets from this. Because people from Ohio come, Kentucky, Illinois, Michigan, North Carolina. Patty said she saw somebody with the license plates from Alaska. People from Richmond are coming to our skate park instead of going to theirs. So it says a lot. And they want to expand it. It's currently at like 14,000 square feet. And I think it was an extra 4,000 or 8,000 square feet have to double check that, but they want to make it more street and beginner friendly. So,
yeah, I definitely need it beginner friendly.
Yeah. Well, and
I'd like to learn how to skateboard before I'm 40. So
Mayor York,
let's go. The clock's ticking.
Mayor York kind of agreed with that. He wants it more towards the beginners.
Did you try to get Mayor York to try to? Maybe he and I can learn together. We'll get Steven to teach the two of us.
Oh, I bet I didn't even think of
Greg
that.
and Jared learn to skateboard.
We will cover that. But no, so there was that.
We're going to need an EMS standing by.
Yeah, there was EMS want lists on there. This is the fire department had a want list. The police department.
Is that kind of the issue with the Stellar Grant? Is that a lot of different people found out we were one of the finalists, so everybody came up with their own idea of what they wanted it to go towards, or
yes and no, but I mean,
everybody wants their own slice of the pie, I guess.
Yeah, but the Stellar coordinator said to go wider and deeper, and so that's what we're doing. We're asking the public what they want, and I mean the theme is safe and welcome. So we already have some of the best people working for us as far as fire department, EMS, police department. So we need to provide them with the gear that makes them the best. I learned today that the Newcastle City Fire Department cannot communicate with anybody in the county, they can't communicate with the police department by radio. I think they may be able to get to dispatch, but I think that's it. They cannot communicate with EMS, the police, nothing.
Everybody else has changed radios and they haven't.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everybody else has been updated and they're left behind.
Yeah, and I just found that out today. And so
Henry County's everybody else basically updated about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because they had massive areas where they couldn't reach. I think they did a study, and I don't think before they made their latest upgrade that they could work in one of the high schools. I think Shenandoah maybe they didn't have any sort of ability to have radio communications in that school.
That's a major safety concern. For
exactly. So I think
it's fixed now, but when they made that change, I think that's probably what disconnected them from the fire department. So the fire department also needs to get on this. So
I understand now.
They made this upgrade, and now the fire department's the last one on the old legacy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and we're actually upgrading to a different radio system. We're installing the towers now, so that's going to be upgraded. And the police chief wanted new radios.
Towers.
Yeah, like different towers, like different frequencies. They also wanted something kind of like for any of the vets out there. It's called Blue Force Tracker. It's software that they already. It's a software update for something that they already have, I believe. And what it allows is you to track the individual. So even if, say, their radio goes down, you still know where they're at because it'll show up on your computer screen. You can look it up off any of the services. Dispatch can look and say, they hear an officer shot, but they're not exactly sure where they're at. They can pull them up on the system and, or any emergency. I guess I shouldn't say police shot because we did have a officer shot here. Brandy. Sorry. But no. And then let's see. What else was there? There was a few good ideas. The Castle Theater got brought up. To show movies and be more like a performing arts. The mayor said that he was going to
move forward with the Castle Theater, whether they got the Stellar Grant or not. So I think if we do get the Stellar Grant, since he was so bold to say that, we shouldn't let him use any of the money towards that.
Well, it's not going to be our decision. That's the problem. So,
if I was the one in charge of Mayor York, then that's what I would make as the rule.
But I think, and Kathy Hamilton said something is, so they're going to develop a list, and then
and check it twice, gonna find out
who's naughty or nice. No, and then they send it off to Indianapolis, and Indianapolis will kind of narrow it down. If I remember correctly, that's what she said.
Zach, so they send it to a third neutral party.
Yes, and they will decide what's best. Sidewalks was a hot button topic.
Now,
ADA
sidewalks or asphalt walkways.
sidewalks.
I would love for any sort of a pathway to extend from Southview to the south terminus of Newcastle, Indiana, on the main street.
I will say that Aaron
amazing.
Dickin talked about annexing the first house in White Estates into the city.
Just the first house?
Just the first house. So,
I say
why the first house?
And we're going to turn the pool that is at that house into a community pool. So
just the first house?
Just the first house.
Thank God I own the fifth house.
Well, Dickin, you're wrong. But no, and then
that sounds very Venezuelan of him.
Yes. Anyways, a water tower to the west of town.
Socialism is for figs.
You
gotta watch the first part of the show to get that reference. Guffey.
I'll have to go back. Dang it. Anyways, water tower to the west of town to supply city utilities out that way, because there's Westwood's one of the is, according to the mayor, the most expensive school to operate because they're on their own water and their own septic.
He's out there often. Pretty much every night.
It's a vacation home.
He lives on
just like Jerry from Parks and Rec has a vacation home in Muncie, Indiana. That Mayor York's is in Westwood.
But so they've talked about that. I think just for the tower and the base that they want underneath, it's going to be I think they said just north of $1 million.
I mean, it costs $40,000 for a bathroom. Why not spend $1 million on a water tower?
But so
it seems
we
can't just Bob's building company can't make a water tower. It needs to be an engineered structure, and there are costs associated.
Yeah,
it's not cheap.
I do remember seeing a article in the Courier Times about the poor shape that one of the water towers around town was in.
I don't remember.
Don't remember all that was said in it. It was a couple years ago, so it's probably even worse shape now.
Maybe we updated it.
Maybe.
We don't know.
That was prior to the Stellar Grant, though.
Yes.
Making the rest of life the best life.
So, and they were wanting to backdate to the 2013 draft that we sent in as well, to just show that we have, we had plans and we have knocked off some of the things that we wanted.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you for joining us, Christopher.
Yeah, no problem, man. I only came for
You came for the food.
Your wife tagged me as I was in that meeting. She goes, "Hey, there's beef roast and green beans there. As long as Jeremiah's there." I swung down, saw Dakota's car, and knew I was in the clear.
You knew the food was still here. Very good. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, actually, for all the young people, 20, 40, even older, but really the 20, 40-year-olds, man, we need to get involved in this. Reach out to me
in the Stellar program,
in the community. Just not even just the Stellar program, but just in the community. We need to show that we're ready to take control. That we're ready to make this town our own. That way, when we are 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds, we have our own kids or grandkids, or in my case, it's seeming like some BA nephews and nieces. And some godchildren, it's that way we can show them, be like, hey, look, we did our best to help you out. We weren't thinking of ourselves the whole time. We were thinking of what we can do to ensure a better future for you guys.
Very good. Dakota, you got final thoughts?
I didn't have any final thoughts.
You got to promote something.
That's true. First of all, I want to say that the Libertarian Party of Henry County has always had our meetings at the headquarters on the second Sunday of the month. That would be this coming Sunday. That meeting has been canceled.
Whoa. Wait, why?
Well, I'm busy. I'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And the second in command presiding officer backed out.
I'm very disappointed in both those people.
He has a commitment. I will be out of town.
Lies.
I will.
So that meeting is canceled. If you're looking forward to coming to it, then
can we move the date?
You're straight out of luck.
We can. Yeah, I think the chairman would have the opportunity to call an emergency meeting if there's action that's required.
It's true.
Do I
have that power?
Do I have action that is required?
So we'll get back to that. But that's that announcement. And then Dakota, you and I.
The other thing we need to promote.
It was in the paper. This is very official.
June 12th, 2019. Jeremiah and I, the hosts of the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast, which you are listening to right now, are presenting a class on civics and community engagement.
Adulting
Did I get that
101.
right?
We're teaching an adulting class. Congratulations.
Well,
you have arrived.
the whole package is adulting, but our section is civics and community engagement.
Yes.
Are you that unprepared? Are you going to go in there and talk about how to change a tire, and they're going to be like, "What does this have to do with community engagement?"
So they're going to have a class that's going to teach about finances. They're going to have a class that teaches about
Is it Dave Ramsey?
automotives, and they're going to have
Dave Ramsey's not going to be there.
they're going to have you and I teach about how a bill becomes a law, or why elections matter, or what
I'm in executive order, and I pretty much just happened.
what the difference between Kim Kronk and Greg York is. What do all these people, these names we throw around, what do they all mean? So you and I are going to get to sit down with some young adults in a Purdue University Extension sanctioned
Might need to
class.
take this class myself.
People have paid money to attend,
Are you kidding me?
and they're gonna hear us, and
And they're going to hear you guys?
we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna make it fun.
Sorry, folks.
We're going to have some question and answer. And then if we run out of time, we're going to say, okay, everybody, follow us. We're going to go show you a real podcast studio.
All right, Newcastle, have a good night.
So it's going to be fun.
Dakota, question.
What?
In this class, how many, I want to make a bet. How many people does Jeremiah bully?
Every single one of them. 100% of the class.
So all right.
Unless there's a person with a physical disability, then he'll bully all of them.
Real quick, we did for work, we did a customer service training thing yesterday. And we got into these little quadrants based upon whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and then how you behave and what you do. And then they start handing out these little notes about your personality. And one of the I was in the yellow group, whatever the hell that was.
Extremely aggressive.
And it said, and they gave a card to somebody in my group that it was a description of you and one of your traits, and it was persistent or it was persuasive. And I took it from the guy, and I'm like, that's me. I'm taking that one, persuasive.
I don't know if you're persuasive. You just beat us down until we can't say no anymore.
Yeah, you had it on the nose with persistent.
Persistent.
Yeah.
Persuasive.
Yeah.
Listen.
You're persuasive because you're persistent.
I've shown up at your house once since you moved into that new house.
Mm-hmm.
Guffey showed up at my house 3 times in the last week, so I don't know who's more persistent.
Only because you asked.
Only because he was the one that was
Exactly.
being persistent.
He goes, hey, look at this trailer plug. I'm like, no.
That was bait. So that was
I was
literally
like,
me laying bait.
No, I need to change that. He's like, all right. So I go over and change it, and he's like, hey, what do you think about these here lots? What? Let's change them. All right. I got my stuff
Listen,
already.
Chris, you have to learn that it's okay to say no.
You know what I'm just going to start doing? Is just
say no.
leave him on unread. Unless there's... I can't though, because anytime I go there...
Generally, when you come over, there's food involved.
There's food. And
you like a good home cooked meal.
I do like home-cooked food. Fast food gets boring.
No, just say, I don't have time. Sorry.
He has time.
Pretty easy.
Right. That's enough
Not
of
when
this.
food's involved.
It's just been fun. We suffered through
Been
it.
a
We
good
made
one.
it together.
You
We
did.
had no official show notes. We had literally had what I scribbled on the back of last week's notes. Dakota had a hellacious
Pretty much
week.
knew what we were going to talk about, though.
Yeah, you did. Sure we did. We did generally talk. Like we had a little bit of a running thing. We
After
had no
doing
show
this
notes.
so much, you can just watch the news and be like, that's what we're going to talk about.
I know what the show's going to be. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun. I look forward to producer Chris getting over to his desk and pressing the stop button because it's all over. It's done. We've had fun. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at WeAreLibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. News, and we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to wearelibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.